A new beginning is often a wonderful opportunity to examine our choices and relook at our life. If these trying times have taught us something, it's this. Inspirations to make a positive change towards a more sustainable way of life are all around us. Today, we'll introduce you to some people who have pivoted their lives towards making environmentally friendly choices. Hello and welcome to Eco India. I'm Sanuta Raghu, coming to you from my neighborhood in Mumbai. India is the largest producer of milk in the world. Because of rising demand, it goes without saying that the primary reason for rearing a cow is for its milk. But a farm in India which has more than 100 cows does not commercially produce a single drop of milk. What made the owner of this farm pivot to make such a contrasting choice? Let's take a closer look.
20 acres of lush farmland in the busy city of Noida. While organic farming is not uncommon even in the city, this farm has taken things to a whole new level. Bijom, as it is called, has built a community of farmers that is self-sustaining and practices natural farming methods with the focus on the well-being of livestock. What makes this farm more unique is its relationship to its family of cattle. Meet Kankrij, a native of Gujarat's Kutch, or Tarparkar from the Sindh region. This red beauty is called Red Sindhi, while Kangayam belongs to a sturdy breed from Tamil Nadu, especially suited for farming. Home to 13 pure breeds of indigenous cattle from across India, this farm doubles up as an animal sanctuary. Cows and bulls have always been a part of agriculture, but indigenous breeds are disappearing at a frightening rate, thanks to the introduction of machines and the growing focus on dairy, which prefers imported breeds to native ones because of the higher milk yield. Some indigenous breed populations are down to as little as 100 animals. Bijom has a herd of 135 indigenous cattle of various breeds, of which 40 are bulls. It's striving to reverse some of the malpractices in farming in India today.
I think everyone knows how cruel the dairy industry is, and when I got into this and when I started seeing how many beautiful indigenous cattle were there, and how the history of us importing cattle from the West for this milk revolution and a lot of other things, then the need to protect these cattle became very strong. So these beautiful indigenous cattle we now pure breed on the farm, and many of these are draught and dwarf cattle which don't actually give a lot of milk. And I realized that these cattle are dying because our whole focus is on milk.
To preserve these breeds, Rajgopal felt the focus had to shift away from dairy. And so Bijom's Dung Ho project was born.
I realized there are piles and piles of dung in all goshalas and it's going waste. And a lot of dung lying around also means it releases methane gas. It's not even going to the right place.
The Dung Ho project promotes an economy around cow dung. Every day, some 1,400 kilos are gathered to be converted into a variety of products, ensuring a second income for farmers. He says we make seed balls like these, using seeds from big trees like the neem. If you scatter them on empty fields before it rains, they start growing. We also make images of the deities Ganesha and Lakshmi using dung and mud. These are used during Diwali and customers come here to buy them. The dung is also used as manure on the fields, doing away with the need for chemical fertilizers. He says when we came here, the fields were sandy. We couldn't do anything without dung. Once we had enough stock of dung, we started making natural manure and used it for the fields. It took us about 2 years of preparation time. Now the soil has regained its natural fertility and we are able to grow vegetables very well. Most of the plants are grown from heirloom seeds. The farmers use traditional systems of intercropping, companion planting, and crop rotation. All food is grown organically. The vegetables harvested here include bitter gourd, squash, and pumpkin. Bijom produces its own solar power and is off the grid. It's home to a large community of farmers from all over India. It runs its own school, a clinic, a women's self-help group, and has direct access to weekly markets. The women's new skills allow them to generate extra income. And the aim is to become completely self-sufficient. Kesar is one such woman whose husband farms while she knits and stitches products that are sold to visitors at Bijom. She says now we're mostly making masks like this. We make about 20 in a day and each one costs 50 rupees. Bijom takes a sustainable approach to farming with a focus on caring for the land and the animals. Founder Aparna Rajgopal hopes her farming journey, with non-dairy cows at its heart, will inspire others to follow.
Around the world, biking is becoming more and more popular. Not only is it trendy, it's also good for your health and the environment. And it reduces your chances of getting infected in these COVID-19 times. But many a time, bikes are often not a priority buy, especially if you're new to the city or don't plan on staying for very long. In Berlin, we found some biking enthusiasts who are repairing old bikes for refugees and short-term visitors so that they too can avail of its benefits.
Kaiwan Yassifi repairs bikes for refugees here in Berlin. He fled Iran 4 years ago. Last year, he started working at the Rückenwind or Tailwind Association.
A bike is important for refugees. It helps them a lot. When you look for a bike online, they cost 50, 70 or 100 euros. But at Rückenwind, we accept a donation of 5 or 10 euros from a refugee.
Almost everyone who works here is a volunteer. The bikes they repair are all donated. Once they've been fixed up, they go to refugees. Only Kaiwan Yassifi has a paid job at the association, and it's partly financed by the National Volunteer Service. It all began 5 years ago, when Germany took in a large number of refugees. The team not only want to help the newcomers, they also want to promote cycling as an environmentally friendly mode of transport. And recycling old bikes is especially sustainable.
We use everything. If a bike can no longer be ridden, we take it apart and use the components for another bike. You could say that from 2 broken old bikes, we create one new usable one.
The team come from many parts of the world. Irishman Graham Pope has been helping out here for 2 years. Outside of Rückenwind, Pope and some friends have set up a bike-sharing non-profit organisation called Bike Surf. It maintains a fleet of 20 bikes, and people can borrow them for a small donation. Bike Surf doesn't aim to compete with commercial bike rental firms. Users mainly come from the sharing community.
The idea that if you can couch surf somewhere or you can live cheaply somewhere, then maybe you can find somewhere to stay, you can maybe find some cheap places to eat or for free, and you might have free Wi-Fi. Then the next thing, getting around a big city like Berlin, is the obvious answer is to be on a bicycle. It's environmental, it's good for you, good for your health.
Pope says he hopes the idea catches on. You can't currently borrow a bike in many other cities. You can book a bike surf bike online, and you can usually keep it for a few weeks or even longer. Rückenwind, meanwhile, has a new project. It wants to visit school classes to talk about bikes and sustainability.
We want to get children and teenagers interested in cycling again, so they think it's cool to ride a bike. We want to show them how easy it can be to repair a bike. We hope to get them so excited about biking that they don't even think of buying a car or even getting a driver's license, but want to move about the city on 2 wheels.
Rückenwind says staffing such a project with volunteers is difficult. They're looking for funding so they can hire and pay more people.
Birth and death. They're part of an unavoidable, eternal cycle of nature. Be it the all-encompassing bushfires or the debilitating monsoon floods, natural events destroy life, yet at the same time create a base for new life. Conservationists are now studying a similar phenomenon in military training areas amid bombed-out debris of army maneuvers.
Constant tank movements and artillery exercises make nature conservation at this army training ground a complicated affair. Before the ecologists start work, the search party patrols the area to make sure there are no nasty explosive surprises lurking in the grass. They are always accompanied by a munitions expert from the German military. They found a missile. Its location is marked down and later bomb disposal experts will pick it up.
You have to search carefully as we use everything from small 20mm ammunition to large ordnance and explosives. Of course, it's much easier to find bombs than to find small munitions. And don't forget, we've been using this troop training area for 80 years, so you find all sorts of stuff here.
Those 80 years of army maneuvers have helped create a varied landscape in Baumholder. There are grasslands with wild herbs, as well as woodlands and brush, all ideal for biodiversity.
The grasslands are so valuable because they're hard to find anywhere else. There's no arable land, so no pesticides, no nutrients, no fertilizers. This is only for military maneuvers.
The army has all the heavy equipment it needs to preserve the natural environment. This armoured vehicle is used to take care of open spaces to make sure they don't get overgrown. It tears up shrubs and it flattens small trees. Germany has 1,400 square kilometres of land for military drills. The environmental group NABU commissioned a study and found something astonishing. Although there are pollutants like heavy metals and kerosene residue, the sites are ecologically important.
The situation in these areas is unique. The exercises create a patchwork environment. There are temporary changes, what we ecologists call disturbances. In areas where soil is removed, there are pioneer sites where rare plants can grow, as well as animal species you can't find in the regular landscape.
Destruction by tanks and artillery creates new ecological niches, says Army ecologist Wilfried Groten. Ponds form in tank trails and bomb craters, where frogs and newts can spawn.
The damage we see here from tank tracks, you only see this in military training areas, is especially important for nature conservation. This is not static environmental protection. Habitats are constantly changing. There are also valuable areas not in regular use by the military where nature can evolve organically.
In the areas used less often, they deploy sheep. Several thousand sheep graze all summer long on the military training ground.
What makes sheep really useful is that they get into all the corners, under the bushes, into parts of the woods we can't reach. A machine can't do that. The sheep's footprints, grazing and droppings get the turf into the state that nature needs.
These sheep have spent numerous summers in the military zone and are well used to it, says shepherd Karl-Heinz Kinkel.
Generally, whenever they're shooting, even heavy fire, you'd be amazed how fast they adapt. If they do get frightened, they huddle together.
In Germany, large swathes of the natural environment have been wiped out, chiefly through intensive farming. The untamed land in army training areas is highly valuable in ecological terms. In Baumholder, despite the bombs and grenades, this unique environment gets special protection.
A majority of Thailand's elephants live in captivity. They're a huge tourist attraction and have to perform tricks on command for the hordes of applauding tourists who visit them every year. These tricks are often perfected by torturing them repeatedly. But the pandemic has put a wrench in the plan of incoming tourists. While on the one hand, this is good news for the elephants, on the other, their future remains threatened. Some of them now have received a new lease on life. We accompanied an elephant rescue team to see for ourselves.
Just one look and she knows exactly which elephant is which. She now has 80 of them. Each one has suffered. Lek Chailert knows all their stories.
See the ear that damaged from the hook.
Until just a few years ago, this elephant worked in a nearby riding camp, as the conservationist explains. He had to carry tourists around every day. If he didn't obey, his trainer would pierce his thick skin with a bull hook. The Thai activist has been working to protect elephants for 25 years. With her foundation, she aims to improve the lives of the pachyderms. Donations enable her to buy up animals who've suffered especially harsh treatment. Most of the elephants have spent decades being ridden or in showbiz. But in Chailert's Elephant Nature Park, they no longer have to work or be in chains. Paying guests are allowed to watch the elephants, but nothing more.
For our project, people come and visit. They don't disturb elephant. They just watch, and we use the money to come, and we can rescue more and more.
Again and again, Lek Chailert has exposed animal abuse using a hidden camera. For centuries, wild elephants have been subjected to prolonged violent taming methods. Now there are laws in Thailand that prohibit animal cruelty. But Chailert says this has done little to change the taming practice known as elephant crushing.
They tie now is the time for them to use the hook. And they start to look at the blood, bleeding everywhere. The baby are completely, you can see the blood. When I work undercover, I have to tell them, pretend that I don't care, or I don't get that footage. But after I come home, all the time I cry. I cry with a lot of disappointment about human. I angry with the people that is be a part of that.
Today, Lek Chailert and her team are once again on a rescue mission. This time, the conservationists will collect 7 elephants from this riding camp southwest of Bangkok and bring them to the reserve near Chiang Mai. The camp owners themselves contacted Chailert's foundation and asked for help, as hardly any tourists are coming to ride the elephants due to the coronavirus pandemic. An adult elephant is usually worth about 2 million baht, or more than 50,000 euros. But due to the pandemic, the animals have become more of a burden for their owners. It costs them nearly 1,000 euros a month for food and care. Thanapat Kyer is happy to at least get 1 million baht per elephant from Chailert's foundation.
Our situation has been dire since the start of the pandemic. We had to close the camp for months. But regardless of whether we're open or closed, we still have to take care of the elephants. And we need to feed them every day. We were allowed to reopen on July 1st, but there are simply no visitors.
The convoy sets off in the early afternoon.
Most important, they love to eat. So as long as they feel here, they're not hungry, and no one hit them, no one beaten them. I think the journey okay, smooth.
The next morning, after a nearly 20-hour drive, the convoy reaches its destination. the Elephant Nature Park, north of Chiang Mai. The team is exhausted. Lek Chailert has hardly slept, but nothing can dampen her mood.
Overwhelmed, happy, because the journey is quite stressed. Elephant angry, so now they are right home. I feel relieved.
Once the restraining bars have been removed, it's time for the elephants to take their first cautious steps into a new life. The newcomers will have to be isolated from the rest of the herd for 2 weeks in order to prevent the possible spread of disease. The rescuers free the animals from all their ropes and chains.
No more chain. So beautiful.
Lek Chailert has provided a new home for well over 100 elephants. A home where they are no longer forced to put on a show, where they can simply be elephants.
The lives of women in India are changing slowly but steadily. More and more women are getting an education and have a career. Despite this, a 2018 poll put India at the top of the list of countries considered most dangerous for women. We met the founder of a non-profit organization in Mumbai who's encouraging women to stand up against sexual violence and gender discrimination.
This protest is a day-to-day struggle. It's 5 steps forward, 2 steps back, 5 steps forward, 2 steps back, and the protest has to be a daily protest to, let the government know that our voice matters. The fact that in Kathua you had an 8-year-old child who was brutally gang raped and murdered as a crime of ethnic cleansing, that you had political leaders across party lines take to the streets with our Indian flag and in defense of the rapists, it's just something you've never seen before. It was just no child's body should be subject to that kind of brutality, let alone on religious grounds. I am a lawyer and a social activist. Back in August 2015, along with a group of fellow young, amazing feminists, we started an organization called She Says, which is a youth-led movement in India to fight against all sorts of gender-based violence and discrimination and fight for equality. At that point, I started receiving extremely targeted, aggressive death and rape threats. I'm following you, I have people following you, I know where you live. I think the idea of a woman claiming agency, an idea of a woman assertively demanding for her rights, assertively fighting for justice, scares old structures. And these weak people, the only thing that they can resort to is going online and threatening us, thinking that that is somehow going to silence our voices. But while I'm still here, I'm still fighting. It's obviously taking a toll on them, but I have an incredibly supportive family. My family realizes that the work we do has a significant impact on people's lives. Everything is tough. They'll object to you being a woman, they'll object to you being young, they'll object to you wearing Western clothes, they'll object to you wearing makeup, they'll object to you speaking English, they'll object to you fighting against discrimination based on religion, they will object to you for raising your voice too much. There's this notion of speak up and fight for your rights, but do so politely, without offending people too much. I dream that we don't pass on these realities to our future generations as accepted way of life, that mothers don't have to tell their daughters marital rape is a way of life, you just have to adjust to it. I dream that, more children are not being subject to child sexual abuse like so many of us were. I dream that equality would be a normal way of life, and more than anything, my dream is to, for, she says, to not be needed.
Now, each one of us has access to a new lease on life at many junctures of our life. It comes down to how we grab it and run with it. I hope today's episode has inspired you to take a step in that direction. I'll see you again next week. Until then, please stay safe and take good care of yourselves and your loved ones. Goodbye.